We'll now take up other committee work. I'm going to move directly to the report of committee number 8 pertaining to the motions regarding the Democratic Republic of Congo. And I call on Melissa Gardner McBride, who is the chairman of that committee, chairperson of that committee. Thank you.
Good morning. I was supposed to come up yesterday after the flash mob and the president. I thought that was a great introduction, but I'm going to introduce myself. I am Melissa Gardner McBride, delegate from the Northern California Nevada Conference and chair of Committee 8. Our work was on a call for a reflection and advocacy on behalf of the Democratic Republic of Congo. And first, I would like to thank my fellow committee members. They brought their energy, their passion, and love for our wider church and world into the room, and indeed opened the door for the Holy Spirit to walk through, which fully happened. The continuing, unfolding God working among us is amazing. Thank you.
And
on behalf of Committee 8, I move that the 28th General Synod adopts the resolution on a call for a reflection and advocacy on behalf of the Democratic Republic of the Congo and recommend voting for this resolution.
all right, thank you. The motion is before you. It does not require a second. It is a resolution of witness. It will require a 2/3 vote. Speakers either in favor of this resolution or opposed to it, please approach the red or green microphones. All right. And Madam Chair, do you have further remarks that you would like to make? All right.
Thank you. For a little background information regarding this resolution, the question has come up, why the Democratic Republic of Congo? Aren't there many other places and issues in the world that need our attention? Yes, and the DRC, Congo, is a country of 60 million people. Since they gained independence from Belgium in 1960, over 6 million people have died as a result of crimes against humanity, genocide, illegal looting of the country's rich resources, and sexual violence. DRC is treated as a free trade zone, and other industrialized nations are eagerly snapping up the wealth of natural resources and protecting their continuing ability to do so. Over 75% of our cell phones have Congo materials, as an example. Corporations and political powers outside the DRC have a vested interest in maintaining Congo as a free trade zone at all costs. The violence and looting of resources is coming from within as well as from without. Even though the DRC is a democratic republic, a dictator had ruled it for over 30 years since independence. Even though the country is rich with resources, most Congolese live in abject poverty. Every single hour, over 48 women and children are raped. Yes, there are other issues, and yes, this is one that needs our immediate response. The disciples of Christ, who have a larger presence in the Congo than they do in the United States, are also considering a similar resolution later this week. Our committee members wrestled with the wording and decided to leave as is, believing then we have room to further respond and expand. This is the first step for us. We trust wider church ministries and justice and witness to find and create ways for implementation that will then be given down to us. Remember in Luke 8:40 through 48, with the woman who touched the cloak of Jesus and was healed. Everyone in that crowd knew her and that she had been hemorrhaging for over 12 years. But Jesus noticed her. He noticed and he made her well. Are we not called to do the same? The Congo has possibly been under our radar, but certainly not unknown to us. Let us notice in the midst of our crowded world that is reaching out for help, the Congo. Let us notice and find the path for healing. Let us notice if we threaten the world's economy, then we also are shaping it for justice. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there others who would speak either in favor of this motion or opposed to it? I do not see anyone approaching a microphone. This is a resolution of witness. It requires a 2/3 affirmative vote for passage. The main motion on the floor then is the support for this matter. Yes, are you prepared to speak?
Wendy Vanderhart, Massachusetts Conference. Our chairperson did a wonderful job advocating for this resolution. I just want you to note, in that resolution, it calls on our churches to spend a week, the third week in October, as a Congo week. And there are opportunities to raise awareness in your local congregations to these issues, one of which is setting aside maybe an hour, maybe a day on your cell phone where you have a voicemail message that says, my cell phone is off because I am honoring the Congo and the minerals that come from there that make my cell phone possible. So there are resources. I hope that you will look for them, and I hope you'll vote for this resolution.
Thank you. All right, are there other speakers, pro or con? Yes, ma'am, at number 1.
Sarah Rensel-Jones, Penn Central Conference. I also served on this committee and commend the work that it has done. And I would like to just bring to your attention the sheer amount of time that we are spending on this resolution as a body. We tend to think more about the things that take up more of our time. Yesterday, we spent a great deal of time talking about United Governance, which is important because it lays the groundwork for how our denomination does its work. Today, we spent more time talking about the frequency of Synod, which again is important because it talks about how frequently we gather as a body and the way that we do our work and the way that we have the opportunity to deal with issues like this. At the same time, in the global scheme of things, this issue is very important. 6 million people is a lot of people. We are all, as we look around our tables, we see many glowing devices which we all enjoy and benefit from, but they are costing people lives. So I would just urge the body to go home and do your homework on this issue. Take advantage of the resources that will be presented. Of course, no one is going to debate this. This is not a contentious resolution. No one is going to vote it down. I mean, you will, maybe, but you're in Jesus Christ, so we all have an opinion about everything. However, it's not going to take up a lot of our time this morning, and I know that we all are tired. But I would urge you to go home and consider this resolution, do some education in your churches and for yourself, and take this very seriously, even though it hasn't taken up a lot of your time. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there other speakers now? I do not see any. So the motion before you is as it has been presented by the committee and posted on the website, the call for reflection and advocacy on behalf of the Democratic Republic of the Congo. If you're in favor of this motion, please press 1. If you're opposed to it, press 2. If you're abstaining, press 3. And the voting is open now. now have 10 seconds to complete your voting. All right, the vote overwhelmingly carries. Congratulations. We'll now move to the motion pertaining to the support of the release of Puerto Rican political prisoners, and I call on Barbara Ferguson Camara, the chair of the committee that took up that motion.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I'm Sia Barbara Ferguson Camara, chair of Committee 4 and lay delegate from the Central Atlantic Conference. We were assigned the resolution in support of the release of Puerto Rican political prisoners. My sincere thanks to our entire committee, the Executive Council liaison, the technical support volunteer, the volunteer parliamentarian, the timekeeper, recorder, and reflective listener. They all helped to make our business move forward smoothly. The changes to the resolution are being projected on the screen. For those of you using the copy of the resolution originally made available to delegates, please look at lines 87 and 88. They are now expanded to lines 87 to 92 as projected on the screen. On behalf of Committee 4, I move that the 28th General Synod adopt the resolution in support of Puerto Rican political prisoners, and I recommend approval.
All right, this motion does not require a second. Will you speak further on it, Madam Chair?
Thank you. Our committee process was very thoughtful and engaging. An overwhelming majority of our delegates attended the educational intensive on Friday, and many commented on the significance of this experience to their increased knowledge and ability to more thoughtfully consider this resolution. As we regathered on Sunday during our committee time, conversations involved lots of opinion sharing and fact gathering. Our deliberations were spirited and filled with tremendous compassion regarding these issues. Our work resulted in additions that we believe clarify the intent of the original resolution. We expanded the first, therefore be it resolved, to add the prisoners' names with reasons for their release. The resolution reaffirms the call to the United Church of Christ to speak against inhumane treatment in U.S. prisons, injustice of long sentences, and lack of adequate medical care. 5 prior United Church of Christ General Synods adopted resolutions regarding Puerto Rican political prisoners. This resolution continues our history of concern. We therefore urge General Synod 28 to adopt this resolution. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. All right, there is a procedural motion at microphone number 5.
Point of personal privilege. I respectfully request that voice be granted to Lisa Torres and Marilyn Pagan Rivera to speak just to this issue.
Yes, we do have a procedure here that if people wish to speak, they had not been granted a voice at the beginning of the synod. I'll take that as the motion that they be granted voice. If 2/3 of the delegates approve that, they will be granted a voice to speak on this motion. All those in favor of granting these 2 individuals a voice, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Are there any opposed? All right, you may proceed, sir, and introduce your guests.
Lisa Torres.
Thank you.
If you want to pull the mic down a bit, thank you.
Thank you. My name is Lisa Torres, and I'm here to echo the voices of millions of Puerto Ricans that could not be here, as well as our Puerto Rican elected representatives, all whom have diligently and effectively campaigned for over 30 years for the release of the Puerto Rican political prisoners. My sister Catalina and I have addressed some of you as daughters of a UCC minister of over 40 years, the Reverend Jose A. Torres, and the daughter and sister of former political prisoners Alejandrina and Carlos Alberto Torres. We come to you as daughters who have been separated from the presence of their family due to the disproportionately long sentences given to political prisoners. We stand here with a huge attitude of gratitude for the instrumental role that the United Church of Christ has played, and the Reverend Paul Sherry, in denouncing the inhumane prison conditions that they have incurred, as well as supporting the international campaigns that advocated for their clemency. Advocacy that played an integral part in President Clinton's executive clemency order that reduced my mother's sentence and the other 10 to time served. We approach this body as proponents of this resolution that, contrary to what some may believe, does not ask you to affirm their ideology nor resolve the century-old colonial relationship that exists between the United States and Puerto Rico. We ask that you continue to honor your history of support for these political prisoners and approve this resolution so that it may be a voice for justice and mercy in proclaiming release for Puerto Rican political prisoner Oscar Lopez Rivera, who has served one of the longest prison sentences for political dissent. Longer than Nelson Mandela and Irish political prisoners, longer than persons who have committed murder. This resolution speaks for Abelino Gonzalez Claudio, who is currently suffering from Parkinson's disease and has been denied adequate medical care to the point that he could barely speak or walk. We come to the General Synod of the United Church of Christ because it has provided a mighty and faithful witness to the call of justice through previously adopted resolutions, through delegations that had provided pastoral visitation to these prisoners and have marched on the streets for justice. This resolution calls on the UCC to do what it does best, to proclaim justice, to express compassion, and affirm the image of God in all people. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. And if you do wish to speak in favor of the motion or against the motion, please go to one of the red or the green mics. If you do have a procedural motion, then we'll take that up on a priority basis and go to microphone number 5. Are there other priority speakers at microphone number 5? All right. Then we'll proceed to microphone number 1. Ma'am, please identify yourself and your conference.
Yes, I'm Alicia Nebot from the Executive Council. I'm a delegate. As a Puerto Rican, a resident of Puerto Rican, I'm telling you that for an archipelago that is highly politically divided, this issue has the vast majority support of Puerto Rican across ideologies and political lines. To me, that's a miracle in an archipelago highly divided. So I urge you to vote in favor of this resolution and honor your 4th of July by doing so. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Is there anyone at one of the red microphones or anyone speaking against it? I don't see any. I'll then call the speaker at microphone number 2.
Good morning, Jorge Morales from the Illinois Conference. First of all, I want to thank you for the prophetic witness of the United Church of Christ in support of Puerto Rican prisoners of conscience and prisoners of war. The evangelist John says, if you hold to my teachings, you are really my disciples. Then you will know the truth, and the truth will set you free. One of the great truths of our society is that we criminalize values that we hold highly, ideals that we teach our children, ideals of democracy, freedom, and self-determination. And there are other times when we set those aside in order to protect our political and economic interests. And Oscar Rivera Lopez embraced all those values that we teach our children, the values that lead us to send young men and women to war, in Iraq, Afghanistan, and many other places. What Oscar did was basically to embrace those values, the values that King embraced, but they were criminalized and King was dragged to jail. Mandela embraced those values and was criminalized. And Oscar embraced those values and he was criminalized. He loved those values. In his youth, he served local communities as an organizer
30
seeking
seconds remaining.
civic, democratic participation. As a result of that, he then embraced the values of self-determination for the people of Puerto Rico. His actions and the actions of others who love their country were criminalized and dragged to jail as a form of oppression to kill the love for freedom and self-determination and the values that we uphold. It is time to free Oscar Rivera Lopez. Thank you.
Thank you. Again, are there any speakers at any of the red microphones? I do not see any. We'll go back to microphone number 1.
Marilyn Pagan Banks. I am co-chair of Quorum. We're the ones who submitted this resolution. And the Gospel of Luke tells us that Jesus unrolled the scroll and read, "The Spirit of the Lord is upon me, because God has anointed me to bring good news to the poor. God has sent me to proclaim release to the captives and recovery of sight to the blind, to let the oppressed go free, to proclaim the year of the Lord's favor." And then he wrote it and said, "Today this scripture has been fulfilled in your hearing." What we are asking the United Church of Christ and this Synod to do is not new to the United Church of Christ, and we're praying that you will vote in favor of this resolution to release the Puerto Rican political prisoners, and we are just prayerful that this will happen on today.
Thank you. All right. Are there any speakers who would speak against it? We have a procedural motion at microphone number 5.
Bethany Joy Lang, Michigan Conference. I was going to call the question, but I don't know if you have to take somebody from the red mic first. Has anybody spoken against it?
All right. No, that motion is in order.
Okay.
Is there a second? I'm sorry, there is someone speaking in opposition, and I do want to hear a speaker in opposition before we move to call the question, and I didn't see you previously, sir, so would you proceed?
Christopher Jenkins, Mass Conference. I must confess I'm actually a little bit comfortable standing at the opposition mic, but I have some concerns, and there's no straddle the fence microphone. I actually appreciate that there's been some amendments to name specific people, because I think that's helpful to the cause and the case, and I'm still actually open. But when I first read the resolution as it was originally presented, I was very uncomfortable because it made it sound like, oh, there are a bunch of people who, just because they want independence and they say so, that's all there is. And I'm thinking there has to be another side of the story, even if it's not a completely valid side. The United States just does not throw people in prison because they express an unpopular view. There'd be a lot more of us in jail. Excuse me, please.
Proceed.
If I can be educated on that, I would be open to that. What I specifically would like to know is if these people were tried, because Puerto Rico is part of the United States, I would like to know if they were tried in accordance with our laws and our Bill of Rights and how all that went down. I'd like to know what it is, even if it's not true, I'd like somebody to at least, who's at a green mic, to explain what the government position is, because certainly the government came up with a better story, even if it is a story, as to why they threw the people into prison. So I'd really just like to know more about that. Like I said, I was a little uncomfortable with the premise, and thank you.
All right. There has been a motion to call the question and end debate. I'd like to try this on a voice vote. I'll ask you whether you're in favor of the motion to call the question, meaning that you'll end the debate on this. You would yell yes, and then I'll ask whether you're opposed to that. So we'll try this on a voice vote. Are you in favor of calling the question and ending debate at this time? Please signify by saying aye. Are you opposed? All right, the motion carries, and we'll now proceed to the debate on the main motion, which is before you. I would ask that that be placed up on the screen and in particular the provision that has been amended by the committee. If that's available. I do want you all to understand that the resolution that had been presented earlier through the website, the committee has, in the underlined provisions, added that language that is there, and then on the second page has deleted the words that are crossed out. So what you're voting on is the resolution as it was originally presented with the committee's action as set forth on the screen. Oh, yeah, right. And because this is a resolution of witness, it would require a 2/3 vote. So if you are in favor of the motion, you're going to be pushing your 1 button. If you're opposed to it, you'll be pushing the 2 button. And if you're abstaining, you'll be pressing the 3 button. All right, the voting is open. You have 15 seconds left. All right, the yes have it by approximately 90%, which is more than the 2/3 required, so that motion has passed. All right, we'll now move to the next committee business, which is a prudential resolution pertaining to the covenant for church youth ministries. I'll call upon the chairman, Neil Robinson. Mr. Robinson.
What light through yonder window breaks? It is the sun, and Juliet is the rain. I made a mistake. What light through yonder window break? It is the east, and the UCC Youth Ministry is the sun. On behalf of the Committee 5, it is our pleasure to make this motion this morning in favor of the resolution. A covenant for the church youth ministry is a setting for 8 promises that we would like this body to approve. Mr. Chair, we move the adoption of this resolution.
All right, and coming from a committee, there is no need for a second. Will you remark further, sir?
After a spirited debate, discussion, and thought-provoking dialogue, the Committee 5 and all of its members voted enthusiastically to recommend the adoption of covenant for the implementation of the policy and the practice for employing, nurturing, and supporting youth workers, both paid and volunteers. I'd like to take the opportunity to thank the committee process team for their invaluable help in helping us as we plan for conducting and facilitating each of our committees. I also want to thank Ms. Betty Dunn, who was our scribe. I'd also, Ms. Kathy Foreman, Ms. Brenda James, and the Executive Council member, Mr. Carlos Forces. We worked long and hard and diligently in the process. We listened to the various sides, the various opinions about whether or not this is an important issue in the life of the United Church of Christ. The resounding response was definitely, it is important that we establish and affirm youth ministry workers in our church. As you are aware, some are paid and some are volunteers. If you will reflect on when you were a youth and the impact that that youth worker had on your life, I am confident that we need to affirm the importance and the need for our youth workers in our church. Youth workers are very unique individuals. As one person in our discussion stated, we don't need to entertain our youth. We need to engage them. They are being entertained by today's technology, whether it's Facebook or text messages. And so we would ask that you would look at the items that we have asked that they be modified and make 8 promises. The deliberation process affirmed the need for the local church youth ministry to implement the following. Are they listed? 1 is to pray for the youth leader and keep their needs at high priority in the church and prayer life. To provide our young workers opportunity for prayerful discernment and gifts and call. To provide opportunities for youth workers to use part of their schedule for retreat, reflection, worship, and personal development. To set aside time and money to provide initial and ongoing training and professional development. To actively encourage our youth workers to take a day away from their role each week. To encourage the people of the local church to volunteer with, to pray for, and to support youth. To show appreciation and celebrate the achievements of youth workers. And finally, to follow fair and just practices in the employment of our youth workers. It is with great pride and great humility that Committee 5 asks this body to affirm this resolution.
Thank you, Mr. Robinson. The motion before you then is to approve the proposed covenant. Will you speak in favor of it? Yes, microphone number 2.
Kevin Peterson, delegate from Local Church Ministries, also an outgoing member of the Council for Youth and Young Adult Ministries and previous award winner of the Justice and Witness Ministries Youth Young Adult Ministries Award. I would speak highly in favor of this motion. At General Synod 23, that body voted to affirm a mission statement for youth ministries and a mission statement for young adult ministries. This resolution offers our thanks and our prayers and support of those who work with youth, and I would highly encourage us to thank them for their tireless service in our sometimes frustrating youth ministry culture in the United Church of Christ. So I would affirm this resolution and urge you to vote in favor of it. Thank you.
All right, thank you. We have a procedural motion at microphone number 5.
It's actually a question. I'm Eli. I'm the youth rep to Executive Council. I'm just wondering how many youth and young adults were involved in putting this together?
All right. Mr. Chairman, will you respond to that?
There were at least 6.
Youth or young adults, or?
I beg your pardon. There were at least 6 young adults who were in the room.
Okay, and were there any youth? I'm not like questioning if it's a good or bad. I'm not stating my own personal opinion on this. I'm just wondering how many youth you tried to get involved in putting this together.
Well, I am confident that there were at least 2 young people who were probably under the age of 13 there.
Okay. Thank
or
you.
18, rather, I beg your pardon.
All right,
Thank you.
All right, we have a matter of privilege coming up in microphone number 6.
Bob Atkinson, Missouri Mid-South Conference. First of all, I'd like to celebrate the work of the committee, and I wholeheartedly support this resolution. However, I would like to make a friendly motion amendment, and it is on line 135 in the original document, and it would read to take 2 full days away. I serve in a conference which suggests in the ministerial guidelines and compensation guidelines that ministers should be afforded 2 days off. I don't believe that youth workers should be afforded any less. They need that rest and recreation. They need time if they have families to spend with them. So that's the reason for the amendment.
All right. I'm sure it's friendly, but once the motion is on the floor, it has to be an actual amendment. And would you just precisely state what the amendment is you're making, sir?
Line 135 would read to take 2 full days away rather than 1 day.
All right. Is there a second for that motion? All right. Is there further discussion on the amendment, which is now what we are considering? It's on line 135 to take 2 full days away. You said line 135?
In the original document. It may be a different line now.
All right, but we're clear on what the sentence is that you're proposing to amend.
Yes.
All right, is there any further discussion on the amendment as presented? All right, let's try this by a voice vote. All in favor of the amendment as presented, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? All right, so your amendment is approved, and it is now incorporated into the main motion, which is back again before you. Is there anyone who will speak against the motion as amended? Number 3.
My name is Vilma Thompson. I'm from the Massachusetts Conference, and I was on Committee 5. If you note, we did not put a specific time. We just said, as far as I remembered, that there should be some time set aside. And that's because some youth workers might work 3 days a week or 2 days. It's different in all churches. And so to say that someone is going to take 2 days off, that might be half the time they work for that week. Some folks are volunteers. So we really left it up and left it sort of flexible and left it up to each church. And that's why we did not put a specific time. We think they should have some time off, and that's basically for time and reflection. And so folks shouldn't be calling at all hours of the night, boundary sort of things that should be thought about. But that's why we didn't put a specific time in there.
Thank you, ma'am. Going back to the pro speakers at microphone number 2.
Hi, my name is Brian Gruen from the Southwest Conference. I'm a previous and I hope future youth minister. And I just wanted to obviously support this. I think it's wonderful that we're talking about youth workers and youth clergy and youth leaders. But I just wanted to make sure that we all keep in mind that I've had some great conversations with people over the last couple of days who are not even aware of what youth workers and youth clergy do. And I just wanted to make sure that you understand that when we're working, the youth are really the ones working. And so even as we hold our youth workers in prayer and even as we recognize them in this amendment, don't lose sight of the fact that it's our youth who are working during those same times. And because I'm worried that when we're closed off to awareness of what youth workers do, then we're not even aware of the ministries that the youth themselves are doing. So just please keep in mind the youth, the ministries that they do are held up even less, and we're made even less aware of them than our youth workers themselves. So just wanted to keep that in prayer. And thank you to our youth who are here at Synod.
Thank you. Are there any other speakers against the motion? All right, we do have one more speaker at the green microphone, number 1.
Hello, my name is Zachary Grant. I'm from the Maine Conference. I'm the state youth representative here for Maine. And I'd just like to supply a little bit of background for this amendment. This was originally, from what I understand, a general contract that is actually used over in the United Kingdom among not just one faith group, but many faith groups as kind of a standard of a covenant for youth ministers. It's very clear in the wording of that you understand that this is not about so much the youth, although this does affect them obviously, but the people that are working with us. So I'd like to just clarify that this is just a set of suggestions that I would urge all of you to take back to your own conferences and really instill on your youth workers and your ministries in each of your congregations to adapt these changes and really support your youth workers and youth ministers. Because this is just a set of guidelines. Nobody is required to use any of this, although I would highly suggest that you take every single one of these 8 promises and adapt them into your own churches. Thank you.
All right, thank you. There is a procedural motion at number 5. Yes, please.
Sorry. Kelly Forbush with the Executive Council on the Council for Youth and Young Adult Ministries. And we noticed that a lot of delegates got up and left when this motion was brought to the floor, and we just hope that they will come back and vote on this very important issue. Thank you.
All right. And is there a second procedural motion at number 5?
I'm Megan Whalev, the youth delegate from Penn Central Conference, and I'd like to call the question.
All right. The question has been called. Is there a second? All right. We'll try this on a voice vote. Try this on a voice vote. All those in favor of calling the question, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? All right. The question has been called, and we are now proceeding to a vote on the main motion. Remember, it's the motion as is amended. I'd like to proceed to a vote. Initially, we'll try this on a voice vote. And now ask you, if you are in favor of the main motion as amended, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Your motion has carried. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. We'll now proceed to the next committee, which was pertaining to the putting our money where our values are. That was committee number 3, and I'd call on Pamela Cook, chair of that committee. Ms. Cook.
Good morning. I am Pamela Cook, member of Decorah Congregational UCC, and I am a lay delegate from the Iowa Conference. First, I would like to thank Committee 3 for their spirited and engaged work on this resolution. The original resolution we are considering was included in those archived on the UCC website. The committee has changed the title from the original document, Putting Our Money Where Our Values Are, to Putting Our Money Where Our Values Are, Evaluating Church Financial Relationships. And you have received a copy of this amended document in the packet at your delegate seat. Believing that God calls us to seek justice, care for the poor, and love our neighbor, on behalf of the unanimous vote of Committee 3, I move that the 28th General Synod adopt the resolution, Putting Our Money Where Our Values Are, Evaluating Church Financial Relationships, and recommend approval as amended.
All right, the motion is before you, coming from a committee. It does not require a second. Madam Chairman, will you comment further?
Yes. The purpose of this resolution is to encourage all settings of the United Church of Christ to have conversations about financial relationships and to evaluate them according to our faith values, similar to the tools available online at the Center for Responsible Lending. This resolution grew out of the concern of a new member of Evangelical Reformed UCC in Frederick, Virginia. After considering the role of financial institutions in the economic downturn 2 years ago, he asked the pastor whether the church had explored the practices of the bank the church was using. Spurred by his question, the church used its faith values to evaluate its current financial institution, and as a result, decided to move endowment funds to United Church funds and their other accounts to a local bank. From this action, a resolution recommending a similar evaluation to other settings of the church was passed by the Central Atlantic Conference last year, and that is the resolution that was presented for our consideration. Prepared with a solid background from Friday's excellent educational intensive, Sunday morning, Committee 3 listened to the proponents and enthusiastically dove into our hearing and deliberation. We specifically looked at the title, summary, biblical and theological rationale, and resolution sections. Using several writing groups, we collaborated on new language for the resolution that changed words but not intent. As I mentioned earlier, to the title, the committee added a colon, evaluating church financial relationships, to better reflect the purpose of the resolution and to address concerns raised by the Executive Council. Since the issues around church financial relationships are rather complex, the committee wanted to keep the language as broad as possible to make it workable for all settings of the church. In addition, rather than limit the evaluation to banks only, we included all financial institutions. Likewise, we did not want to limit the process to only lending practices, but also business and investing practices. These changes are clearly delineated on your new copy of the resolution beginning on line 45. While I had a brilliant committee who made well-crafted amendments to other parts of the resolution that we hope you will share with your settings, the only section we are voting on this morning is the text beginning on line 44. Thank you.
All right. This is a resolution of witness. It is now titled Putting Our Money Where Our Values Are, Evaluating Church Financial Relationships. It is the motion on the floor. I seek procedural matter at microphone number 5.
It's Julia Lebrel, Michigan delegate, young adult, and I apologize for going back to what we just did, but as one of the young adults, one of the, I guess, part of the people who are addressed within the youth ministry resolution, I was quite upset that we did a voice vote because, as another young adult or youth mentioned beforehand, I think young adult, there were people who were out of the room, and it seemed not that it was necessarily on purpose, but it kind of dismissed how important this resolution was to address our youth and young adults. So as a young adult delegate, can we please, when we have these resolutions up, just because we have maintained a standard of doing the vote with the clicker, to maintain that vote that way, because it keeps all the resolutions on the same level.
All right. There is no procedure for redoing that vote. If, just to keep us with schedule, if it appears that a voice vote would not be in doubt, it is my plan to continue with voice votes as appropriate. If someone does move at that time for a clicker vote, we'll take it up at that time. All right. Are there other, is there anyone else at table 5 for you? All right. Speaking in favor of it at mic number 1.
William Field, Central Atlantic Conference. First of all, a point of information real quick. The Church Evangelical Reform is in Maryland, not Virginia. But my real point here is that this is a Central Atlantic Conference initiative, and when it was introduced to us, the intent was that we look at our relationships, not that we necessarily guarantee moving them from one place to another, but we found that several of our churches saved a lot of money, having then looked at the relationships that they had in place. There are bank fees and things that we don't think about, but maybe we should think about just to see what it is that we're spending. This one church saves several $100s per month. Other churches are finding that they can save money also. So I would urge you to pass this.
All right. Thank you, sir. Other speakers at microphone number 2. Yes, sir.
I'm Joaquin Willis. I'm pastor of the Church of the Open Door in Miami, Florida, and delegate to the local church ministry board, serving as outgoing vice chair. I want to applaud the committee for taking this initiative. As pastor of the Amistad St. Paul United Church of Christ in Atlanta, Maryland, I was honored to be a part of the organization of the Collective Banking Group in 1995. We organized because we found in the African American community, through redlining and predatory behavior, that many in our churches were not getting justice from the banks. In addition, we felt as we approached the organization with 25 clergy of ecumenical background, we began to look to see how much money was being reinvested in our communities from banks that we deposited millions of dollars in every Monday morning. We found through our investigation tremendous disparities in 1995, that's 16 years ago. Now, as an organization under the leadership of the Reverend Jonathan Weaver, who was pastor of an AME church there, we organized that group so that we could do some great work. In 2002, as pastor of the Church of the Open Door, we set up the 5th chapter of the Collective Banking Group in Miami. To date, we have had over $40 million reinvested in our community by our direct churches and over $130 million that we've influenced through housing. I stand to tell you that we are now entering into healthcare partnerships and others. I strongly encourage us to look into this resolution and support it. I'm pleased to say that now we have Church of the Open Door, First Church of North Miami, and the First European Church, Coral Gables United Church of Christ, as a part of our initiative. Haitian churches and Hispanic churches have joined us, and we're doing a great work as a collective banking group in Miami-Dade and vicinity. Thank you, and I support it.
Thank you, sir. Is there anyone who wishes to speak against the motion? I don't see any. We'll go back to microphone number 2.
Thank you. I'm Skylar Bruce, a lay delegate from Ohio, and I wanted to address the question that some people have asked me, is whether this actually can have an impact. I have worked for a mid-sized bank, and I currently work for a community-based credit union, and yes, it matters. If you decide to, your congregation or association, etc., move your accounts and other dealings, let them know why. Write a letter to the manager and higher-ups, detail exactly what it is that affected your decision, and then tell the people who you're, the institution that you're moving to, why you're going there, to support what it is that we actually are pushing for here. Thank you.
Thank you. Again, are there any speakers in opposition? All right, again, I see a speaker at microphone number 2.
Good morning. My name is Charlene Tompkins, and I'm from the Florida Conference. I am very much in support of this resolution because it allows for best practices and a number of things that all of us are very much interested. But one of the things that I do want to state is, while we're asking others to deal with justice and fairness by having full and understandable disclosure and using whatever best practices so that people are aware of what's going on, I also ask that we do the same. It did not go without notice when we were given as delegates here the financial report that we have no sense of where we are financially, and good best practices state that we need to know what we started with, what we ended with. We did get a lot of what happened in between. So I'd like for us as a church to practice what we're preaching.
Thank you. Is there any negative speaker? And I see no other speakers at all. Not having heard anyone speak in opposition, it's my intent to proceed to a voice vote unless there is an objection to that. All right, the motion before you, the main motion, as renamed, is putting our money where our values are, evaluating church financial relationships. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Opposed? Abstentions? The motion clearly carries. Thank you, Madam Chairman. All right, we'll now proceed to the work of committee number 6.
Good morning. My name is Carolyn Kylick, and I am a delegate and a pastor from New Hampshire.
Oh, I'm sorry, ma'am. There is someone at mic 5 on a procedural matter.
Yes, I'm Paul Bryan Smith from the Connecticut Conference. I have a concern with the way we have left the resolution regarding the frequency of General Synod. My question and concern is that we voted down the change, but we didn't formally direct the executive committee to take it up during their next session. And so if it's appropriate, I would like to so move.
All right. Let me explain the procedural status of that. The committee included that recommendation as part of its report, and the members of the executive committee have heard that. Unfortunately, that type of motion was not presented as an amendment, nor would such an amendment have probably been in order since it's a bylaw change. So I think that the way that has been left is that the report of the committee has been accepted, including that recommendation, and that is what the executive committee has heard. It's not a part of the bylaw change as such.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome. And another procedural matter.
Point of order. On our schedules, we have listed Resolution Block G, Resolution Block H, and you announce that this is Resolution 6 or 7 or 3. So those who are trying to follow, we don't know where we are on the schedule right now.
All right. Fair question. I can list the committee motions and matters in the order that it has now been provided to me, so it'll give you some opportunity to know what's coming next. Obviously, that order might change depending on where we are on the schedule. But what I have next is the work of committee number 6 pertaining to the peacemaking efforts, then the work of committee number 1 affirming health care coverage, then the work of committee number 9, the right of LBGD parents, then the work of committee number 7, supporting international human rights, then committee number 12, actions on the hostility toward Islam, then the work of committee number 2, resolution for mindful and faithful eating, and then a committee to form a theological commission. And we have a resolution coming directly to the Synod regarding the nuclear test ban. So that is a fair question. Thank you for raising it. That is the order that I am working off of now, and again, it may be subject to change. So let me go back then to the work of committee number 6, a motion in support of effective and constructive peacemaking between Palestinians and Israelis through positive investment in Palestine, and call upon Carolyn Kaling. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Carolyn Kylig, and I am a delegate and a pastor from the New Hampshire Conference. And I worked with Committee 6. Thank you to the members of that committee for all the hard work that you did. The resolution we considered is located among the resolutions that were to be downloaded and brought to General Synod. The resolution is entitled, "In Support of Effective and Constructive Peacemaking Between Palestinians and Israelis Through Positive Investment in Palestine." In bringing forward this recommendation, the delegates required a lot of clarification to understand the context of this resolution. We appreciate the work of the presenters, Michael Small and Krista Betts, and the clarification brought to this issue by Peter McCary from Global Ministries and the other United Church of Christ staff members who attended and provided background information. On behalf of Committee Number 6, I move that the 28th General Synod adopts the resolution in support of effective and constructive peacemaking between Palestinians and Israelis through positive investment in Palestine, and recommend that no action be taken.
All right, so the motion that is going to be available to you for consideration is as stated, with a recommendation from the committee. Madam Chairman, will you remark further?
During the committee process, much of the time was spent grasping the context of this resolution in light of the formal statements of previous General Synods. Past General Synods have affirmed the use of various nonviolent tactics available to effect peace and have opposed violence. Pension Board and other United Church of Christ staff clarified that we are already positively invested in Palestine. However, questions remained regarding the effectiveness and appropriateness of disallowing the ability to use the nonviolent tactics of boycott, divestment, and economic sanctions that previous General Synods had not prohibited and allowed their use as measures of last resort. While some individuals voiced other concerns, the main concern included boycott, divestment, and economic sanctions. During the time of deliberation, there was hearty conversation. First, in discussions regarding making a recommendation to amend the resolution, the focus was on the segments that included language around boycott, divestment, and economic sanctions. Amendments that were floated would have, among other things, eliminated language about avoiding the movement towards boycott, divestment, and/or economic sanctions. If this language was removed, the resolution would not bring anything forward that had not previously come before General Synod. The committee took time to wrestle with this. Second, there was dialogue regarding the option of making a recommendation to defeat the resolution. This option was not taken because much of the language affirming our commitments to peacemaking resonated among committee members. Had the committee chosen to recommend defeating this motion, we would be recommending that the General Synod go against a shared value of peacemaking. Finally, the committee reached strong consensus to recommend that no action should be taken on this resolution at General Synod 28.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. The motion comes through from a committee. There is no requirement for a second. It is now the motion for your consideration. I see a gentleman at microphone number 5 for a procedural matter.
Good morning. Larry Bean, Penn Central Conference. I'd like to move that we table this resolution.
All right. I believe before a motion to table can be considered, we need to hear 2 speakers on each side before we effectively cut off debate. So you can resume with that motion, but I don't think it's appropriate to be the first motion that we take up. All right, those in favor of the resolution at microphone number 2.
Yes, I'm Michael Small. I am a delegate from Minnesota. I am the author of this resolution, and I stand in support of the action of the committee. And I understand that there needs to be more conversation as we seek to imagine what's possible. And I strongly stand here also convinced that to take off the table BDS is appropriate. I stand here also encouraging congregations and conferences and others within the United Church of Christ to invest positively in Palestine. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Is there a speaker opposed to the motion? Yes, microphone number 3.
Hi, I'm Susan Wendt from Southeast Pennsylvania. I was on the committee, and the one thing that we were concerned with is that we are not calling for sanctions, we are not calling for boycotts, we are not calling for divestments, but we do not want to tie the hands of for the future, where we would have to come back to Synod and change that motion. So this way, they're still available. We do want this motion defeated.
Thank you. Back at microphone number 2 in favor of the motion.
Bronwyn Cook, Massachusetts Conference. I am the head of the task team for Israel-Palestine concerns in Massachusetts. I would just like to say that we have a letter in support of the Kairos document that comes from the Palestinian Christians themselves, and we hope that that is the letter from the General Minister is in support of that document. And 2 synods ago, it was stated that we would look more carefully into the Israeli-Palestinian situation and come to understand amongst ourselves in small groups in our churches. And I would simply like to say I support the way the vote went, and I hope that people will, in fact, become more educated. It's vital. Thank you.
All right. One more speaker against, and then I'll call on the motion to table.
William Field, Central Atlantic Conference. As I understand it, this proposal reverses previous actions by earlier synods, and as such, I think it is inappropriate to tie the hands now when the church has already moved toward opening up possibilities for making peace in the Arab-Israeli conflict, and I would urge you to vote against this as quickly as possible.
All right. We have heard some debate at this point. We do have a priority motion at microphone number 5. Do you want to restate your motion, sir?
Actually, Christopher Jenkins, Mass Conference. The motion to table wasn't mine. I had a parliamentary inquiry, though.
Yes.
That I'd like to. I think there's again confusion. I certainly share it, and I think the delegate who spoke, my colleague from Massachusetts, actually at the other microphone, I think both of us might be a little unclear as to where we come down in terms of which side we vote on based on what we want to do. The recommendation of the committee was no action, and so I'm wondering what the appropriate vote is for us to take if we want to support the committee. It almost sounds like it would be to vote again, in which case, how is that different from disapproving in terms of the record?
Right. As far as the parliamentary procedure goes, first we'll be taking up a motion to table if it's still pending. That would have the effect, essentially, of ending any forward progress on this particular motion. That would be carried by a majority vote. If that motion to table does not pass, we'll then proceed to additional debate. When we come to the debate, the matter before the body is the resolution as it was drafted. So if you were going to follow the committee's recommendation, which is that no forward action take place, then you would be voting against the motion as presented. That's where we are procedurally. All right, and the gentleman who had made the motion to table, I asked him to postpone that. Are you still here and still making your motion?
Yes, I am still here and still making the motion.
All right. The motion to table, is there a second? All right. The effect of the motion to table, given the fact that the Synod ends today, is essentially that this no further action would be taken on this matter. Is there an objection to a voice vote? Yes. All right. We'll then proceed with the clickers. And if you are in favor of tabling this motion, Then you will be voting, pressing button number 1. If you were opposed to tabling the motion, you'll press button number 2, and if you're abstaining, press number 3. The effect of a 1 vote will to end the debate and any forward progress on this particular motion. So the voting is now open. Yes is a vote in favor of tabling this particular motion. And this is a majority vote. 15 seconds left for your voting. All right, by 71%, the motion to table has been accepted. That particular motion is no longer before the body. It is tabled, and we'll be moving on to the next resolution. Want to do conference ministers? I see a speaker at the yellow microphone. Yes, sir.
Thank you. Dick Hom, Associate Delegate from Northern California Nevada Conference. Point of personal privilege.
Yes, sir.
I would like to suggest we take a short break so that we can come back energized and ready to do more business, since it's not on the schedule until 12 noon.
All right. I think there is merit to that suggestion. We are going to move on to another matter other than resolution. So why don't we take 5 minutes in place stretch. We'll then be moving forward with another matter.